Hey, everybody. Welcome. Glad that you're here tonight. We've got a lot to talk about. It's been an interesting day, to say the least. So, yeah, let's do it. Let's do another one of our late night conversations. So glad to be here with all of you.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just it's a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. So glad to be here with you all tonight. Wild times that we live in. But anyhow, I'm going to do just another one of our great late night conversations. So the way we generally do this is I give my opening remarks. My opening remarks are then followed by a roll call. And then the roll call is followed by me answering your super chat or Rumble rant questions for the rest of the night. So if there is something you would like me to talk about in the second half of the program, all that you need to do is send me a super chat on YouTube or a Rumble rant on Rumble. Excuse me. It is your questions that make the second half of the show happen. Yeah, let's do it. I think that this is going to be an interesting night. We may not spend as much time talking about what I thought we were going to talk about, but that's okay because there's been some interesting developments. But before we get to that, just a reminder that every morning on the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel, we do have morning messages. Now, this morning, there was a technical thing where it got scheduled at the wrong time. But tomorrow morning, we will have a morning message airing at 6 a.m. And every morning, scheduled 6 a.m., we premiere a morning message. So, I would encourage you to go to the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel and go and listen to the morning message. Start your day with revolutionary hope and optimism. That's what our community was founded to do, to support each other, to educate about anti-imperialism and revolutionary theory in these hard times, support each other. That's what we're here to do. So it's on the CPI YouTube channel every morning. You can enjoy good stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to remind you to do that. And you can submit a morning message. If you would like to make a morning message of your own, we have this great link that was created by Peter Coffin, through which a morning message can be created. Imagine that. A morning message can be not only watched, but you can even submit one. So if you feel like you'd like to share something with the CPI community, you'd like to be part of our morning messages, you can submit a morning message at this link. And you just upload the video. There it goes. There it goes. There it goes. So yeah, that's the announcement I've got. We got plenty going on with the Center for Political Innovation, a lot of exciting stuff happening. And I'll tell you more about that later. But anyhow, folks, as I said, the way these streams work, opening remarks, roll call, answering people's questions. That's the way it works. Opening remarks, roll call, and then I answer your questions. So send me questions for the second half of our show. Folks, before I get to talking about the other thing, you all will recall that last night I was here talking about my book. I wrote a book, Kamala Harris and the Future of America, an essay in 3 parts. I published this book in September of 2020, and it got amazing reviews. Goodreads, go read the Goodreads reviews of it. It did amazingly well on Goodreads. I mean, go and read the reviews. People love this book. Everyone who's actually read this book thinks it's phenomenal. It got a review even in the Morning Star daily newspaper in the United Kingdom. It got a review in a newspaper in India. This book has been very well received. It was my pandemic book, and I did a lot of research, and I wrote a book about Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris, it appears, is the presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party. Now, it's not official yet. They will decide at their convention, but I warned that they were going to do everything they could. Certain forces within the deep state were going to do everything they could to get her into the presidency. And I talked about why, and I wrote a whole book about it. And that book made a big splash. A lot of people read it. A lot of people felt they learned a lot from it, got a lot from it, etc. So I did my stream, and I checked my book sales, see how they're doing. I, sold a few copies here and there today, and I figured, okay, there'd be an uptick in interest in it. Well, then just a couple hours ago, just over, not even 2 hours ago, I got an email today from Amazon.com informing me that my book had been removed. And it said, alert from Amazon about your account on KDP. It has come to our attention that the following book or books may include one or more images on the cover for which you may not have the necessary rights. I thought, well, that's odd because this cover was approved in September of 2020. And it's been on sale ever since, and no one had any complaints about it. And it got through everything, and it got all these reviews. This book has been for sale for 4 years, but it just so happens that just as Kamala Harris gets the nomination, just as it appears Kamala Harris gets the nomination, they suddenly decide that this cover is a copyright violation. Well, it's not a copyright violation, and I'll tell you why. I know who designed this cover. It was designed by Arthur Porter, and in fact, he's credited on the back page of the original book. Arthur Porter designed this. He took one image of Kamala Harris and he altered it. He did not use, this is not, a copyrighted photograph of her. It's an altered image. He used an altered image, and this is all original. It's got the CPI logo on it. This cover is an original cover that was designed by Arthur Porter. And they pulled it. Now, what are the chances that they would pull it today? Of all the times they would pull it, why today? I think we all know what's going on here. I think we can all tell what's going on here. But folks, it gets better than this. Occasionally there'll be a little snafu with one of your books. They'll have a concern about something with one of your books, right? But what has always happened is it'll still be on Amazon. It'll still be on the Amazon website, but it'll say currently unavailable. Currently unavailable. Not this book. No. If you go to the Amazon page, you cannot make this up. It doesn't have this book, and it just says currently unavailable. They scrubbed it. It doesn't exist. They didn't just make this book unavailable while I dealt with a copyright issue or whatever. No. It's not currently unavailable. It doesn't exist. I know. I'm telling you, folks, this is how the deep state works. And this is the best compliment I have gotten in a long time, because that book's been in print for 4 years. And right now, they desperately don't want people to read it. They're suddenly running all kinds of ridiculously stupid news stories about how everyone loves Kamala Harris. I know. You can't make this up. Everybody loves Kamala Harris. Everybody loves Kamala Harris. And just on the day that they decide they're kicking off the Kamala Harris brainwash, right, that suddenly this wildly unpopular person that they haven't been able to make popular for 4 years straight, just so happens that's when they pull my book. And I got to tell you, this is the best compliment I've had in a long time. It really, really is. Because this shows you that they think this book matters. Right? If this book wasn't a threat, if the information in this book wasn't of a concern, they wouldn't do this. They went out of their way right at this moment to pull my book. And so I resubmitted it with a generic cover. And I removed the cover entirely, and I resubmitted it with a completely generic cover. And I replied to their email and I said, this is not a copyright violation cover. I had it independently designed, but in the interest of getting the book back on, I will immediately resubmit with a generic cover. I told them that, and I resubmitted it with a generic cover. Let's see if it goes up. Generally, books go up within 24 hours, within 1 or 2 business days of submission. Let's see if it gets back up on the web with a generic cover. It looks like I'm going to be going on some shows about this book later this week. Very interesting. Very interesting. And let's see what happens, right? And I talked a lot about Kamala Harris last night, and I don't want to spend this whole stream talking about Kamala, because you're going to be hearing me talk about Kamala nonstop for, the next few weeks, few months. So I really don't want to, spend too long on Kamala tonight, but I will make a deal with you, because ever since this happened, like the tweets, many people have already reached out to me in the last hour about how my book was pulled and how it was so ridiculous, how they just discovered a copyright violation today. And, let's see if they suddenly discover they can't let it go with a new cover. Let's see what happens here. But I will make a deal with all of you. Yeah, they pulled the book. I will make a deal with all of you. There is a PDF version. And because this is crunch time, and because this book has been out for 4 years, if you Cash App me $10, not much, I will, and you include your email address, I will email you the PDF. That's my policy. I'm making this offer because I want people to see the contents of this banned book. So if you Cash App me $10 and you include your email address in the Cash App, I'll send you the book. That's my deal I'm making, because I want it out there. I want it out there. And so you can still get it directly from my email. You just have to Cash App me $10. $10 is not much. The cover price was $15 when they took it down. So you're getting a deal. And I am trying my best to get it back on Amazon. We'll see if they approve the generic cover. And there are other routes you can go at. But we'll see. Let's see what happens. But yeah, if you and all of you that have the original book, hold on to it, because you have a collector's item, right? All of you that have that original cover, all of you that have a book that looks like this, you now have a collector's item. You have an item that will go down in history. Yes, you own the rare first edition. And you know what would make me smile from ear to ear? I mean, I can't tell you all what to do. And, this isn't some huge channel with, millions of viewers or whatever. But if you really want to help the fight, I would encourage you to make TikTok videos, make YouTube videos, make Twitter videos, holding up your version of the book and reading out loud from it. Let's give them hell over this. It is so goddamn obvious what they are doing here. If you have the book, if you have a physical copy of the book, I think it would be a great use of your time if you made a YouTube video of it, if you videoed yourself holding it, if you talked about it. Let's show that we can see exactly what they're doing. We know exactly what they're doing. We know exactly why they're doing it. Everything in this book was totally fine until Monday, July 22nd, 2024. So yeah, if you want to take a picture of yourself with the book or make a video of yourself with the book or anything holding up this cover, that everything, let's give them. Yeah. Let's bring it to their attention. That this book, we know what they did. They didn't just remove it. They scrubbed it, right? Usually if there's a snafu with your book and they have to take it off, it just says temporarily unavailable. No, this book is not temporarily unavailable, right? We got a little puppy dog. We got a little puppy dog that says, sorry, I couldn't find that page. Oh boy, don't get mad at me. I'm an adorable little puppy dog. You can't be mad. I know you're really angry that your book is gone, but I'm an adorable little puppy. Rip, 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 rip. Right? You can't be mad at me. I'm such a cute little puppy. Oh my God. Is that like an anger control thing? Right? Is that like a therapy dog to like calm you down? Or, it's like, you can't make this up. I think this is great, right? Thrift Books has 50 copies at the moment. Now it says on back order. Dang. Are you kidding me? Wow. This is great. So, hey, cash at me $10 and I will email it to you. Include your email in the Cash App. Hold on. I'll put it on here. Cash App $10 to Alebmoppin22. Include your email and I will send it to you. And I will send you the PDF. I just want it out there at this point. If you want the PDF. So yeah, let's see what happens. But yeah, if you cash at me $10, I'll send you the PDF. I bought the last copy on eBay. Dang. Right? This is like, what is that book? Fahrenheit 451 or something? Like, this is great. This is crazy. So if you want the Kamala Harris book, I will send it to you. If you can cash at me $10, include your email in the thing, and I will send it to you. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. I have never seen it, right? Yeah, this morning Thrift Books had 50 copies of my book, and now it's on back order. Did you sell 50 today? Oh, and you have an audiobook chapter posted on your channel. That is true. So let me pull up, and if you want to listen to the audiobook is available. That is true. So if you want to listen to the audiobook, hold on. There is an audiobook available. There's another one in the works too. I know Tyler's working on one, but yeah, we'll do the audiobook. If you want to listen to the audiobook version, right? The audiobook is here. So, audiobook chapter 1 is here. Yeah. It's pretty wild, right? It's pretty wild. So there's the audiobook of chapter 1. Yeah. And I will make a tweet of that. Thank you for that, John, for reminding me about the audiobook. And if I will tweet that out right now. So hold on, folks, while I tweet that out. The audio of my recently all right. I'll tweet that out too. I just tweeted out the audio book. So there we go. And there is my tweet of the audiobook. So yeah. I think that being censored is a compliment. This is a great compliment. But yeah, they scrubbed it like it doesn't exist. And we'll see if for some reason it doesn't go through tomorrow, right? For some reason it just doesn't go through tomorrow. If some reason, I will not be shocked at all if for some reason it just doesn't go through tomorrow, right? Oh, Abe Books has copies. That's good. Get them while they're still there. Thrift Books suddenly ran out, right? So, I mean, just saying, right? And if you want me to send you the PDF, I will send it to you. If you can cash at me $10, that would be greatly appreciated. And I will email it to you. But yeah, this is really a compliment. I am basically being told by the government, by the status quo, that my book matters. So yeah, there you go. I think this is quite interesting, and this is quite a compliment. And I've got some interviews about the book already lined up. I'm not going to announce them because you never know, something happens, and if you announce it, then it's awkward. But it looks like I've got an interview, at least a couple interviews lined up about the book since Kamala Harris appears to be the nominee. So yeah, I just wanted to share all of that with you all. And I'm going to do my best to try and go through their rules and get it back on Amazon, but we shall see. And yes, Caleb's books matters. There you go. No, this is really a compliment, right? I guess I don't want to spend all of tonight talking about Kamala Harris because we talked about her for all of last night, and we're probably going to have to talk about her for the next 4 or 5 months. Hopefully not the next 4 years, but at least the next 4 or 5 months until Trump defeats her epically. But I guess the last thing I will say about the book is, I guess I will say, what will I say? Well, let me pull up another image. I'll just pull up an image that you should see. All right, this is the image that you should see. Let's see if I can get it to show on the screen here. Right? Let me see if I can get it a little bit bigger. Hold on. Okay. This man, Donald Harris, is a man that you don't know anything about. Nobody knows anything about Donald Harris. And it's really funny because we knew all about Barack Obama's father, and we knew all about Barack Obama's mother. We know all about Donald Trump's father. We don't know much about Donald Trump's mother, but we definitely know about his father. We know all about George W. Bush's father. We heard Clinton's life story over and over again, but nobody knows anything about Kamala Harris. Nothing. We just know that, she's a woman of color, and we're all supposed to be so excited that Kamala Harris, I'm just telling you, I know about this man. And I dug and I researched, and everything that I found is in the public domain. I didn't find any hidden, mysterious information. Everything that's in my book is available. But nobody is talking about this man and why Kamala Harris hates his guts, and why he did not attend her inauguration, why he denounced her campaign in 2020. And nobody's talking about how that is related to how Kamala Harris governed as an attorney general in the state of California, and how Kamala Harris has a foreign policy from hell. She will create instability and chaos and color revolution around the world. Nobody's talking about these things. I am. I've been talking about them for 4 years straight, and they're rather important with an election coming up. So if you want to know who this man is, if you want to know why it matters, I've got a book for you. And yes, I'm going to have to write another book about Kamala Harris. I was thinking that I wouldn't. I was thinking, you know what? I already wrote one, and, I got some side projects or whatever. No, I'm going to have to write another book about Kamala Harris. I've already done the research, and a lot more has come out since the one I wrote. And the one I wrote is already a bombshell. So much of a bombshell, they're trying to censor it. So yes, I'm going to write another book about Kamala Harris. It's going to happen. In the next couple months, there will be another book about Kamala Harris from me. Because it must be done. No one else is doing it. How is she the candidate for president for the Democrat Party, and nobody knows anything? Well, there you go. And if you want me to send you a PDF of the original that is no longer available on Amazon, Cash App, include your, and Cash App $10 to Caleb Maupin 22, and include your email address, and I will send you a PDF of the book. Multiple people reached out to me as soon as the book was banned, as soon as they saw the posts, and asked me to send them the PDF. And so I did. And there we go. So, yeah, there we go. So there we go. Crazy times. So, yeah, thank you all for being here and being part of this community, and all the exciting things that are happening in our community. It's an exciting time to be alive. It's going to be a wild few months here. So that brings me to what I was going to talk about originally, which is they had the hearings for the Secret Service on Capitol Hill. Kimberly Cheetle is the chief of the Secret Service. She is the director of the Secret Service. And she was on Capitol Hill today answering questions about what went wrong with the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. And the hearings, which I listened to, were disturbing. What was disturbing about them was there were no answers. No answers were really given. And that was disturbing. It was deeply, deeply disturbing. It was deeply, deeply disturbing that no answers were given. They asked why it was that with a suspicious person spotted in the crowd, Donald Trump was still allowed to take the stage. They asked why it was that that roof that was so close did not have a Secret Service agent on it. They asked why that roof that the shooter climbed up on and mounted his rifle. They asked why it was that that roof was not within the security perimeter. They asked a lot of questions, and almost all of those questions were answered with, "We can't talk about that." One thing that I thought was interesting is they wouldn't say it was a lone wolf. And that was very interesting. It's been enough time now to find out if he had an accomplice. And they wouldn't say it was a lone wolf. Now, that's pretty weird. The other thing that's a little bit weird about the case, and I mean, I'm just looking at the case, this Michael Thomas Crooks, he was a Trump supporter. He was a Trump supporter. That doesn't make sense. He was a Republican. He wasn't a woke guy. He wasn't some kind of liberal actor. He wasn't anything like that. In fact, he lived a rather uneventful life. And he was just a kind of your typical Trump supporter. That is also very odd. Extremely odd. So there's something that ain't right here. The whole thing is very, very odd. And she wouldn't answer questions. She said it's an ongoing investigation. There's all kinds of people calling for her to step down. There's all kinds of people calling her incompetent. She wouldn't even answer how many Secret Service were guarding Donald Trump. And I thought that was weird. She wouldn't say anything. She just didn't answer questions. That's very odd. Very, very, very odd indeed. But anyhow, enough about Donald Trump and enough about Kamala Harris. For those of you who may not be aware, and you wouldn't know this, right? Because we're all busy talking about Trump and Kamala Harris. Israel and Yemen are now at war with each other. That's a pretty big deal. Israel is a country propped up by American taxpayer money. Yemen is one of the poorest countries in the world, and it's led by a revolutionary anti-imperialist Islamic organization called Ansarullah, or the Houthis. And they are now at war with each other. Israel is bombing Yemen, and the Houthis have struck Tel Aviv with their missiles. And the Houthis are overjoyed because they believe that this is what God has wanted them to do all along. Before the founder of the Houthi movement died, he told them that he had a vision and that there would be a time when they would stand up for the Palestinians when no one else would. And the slogan of the Houthi movement, right? This is they call it the cry in the face of the arrogant. Right? It's this thing you see, right? This is the logo, the symbol of the Houthi movement is this the cry in the face of the arrogant. These 5 slogans. And those 5 slogans are death to America, death to Israel, victory to Islam, God is great, curse be upon the Jews. And they call those 5 slogans the cry in the face of the arrogant, or the cry in the face of the arrogant powers. And, originally it was, the founder of the Houthi movement was Hussein al-Houthi. And he was this minister, this Islamic cleric in northern Yemen. And originally his group was called Young Believers. They ran summer camps, and they ran, youth sports programs, etc., college Bible clubs, or college, Islamic clubs, etc. And then after 9/11, he had an awakening, and he said, we need to form a more serious organization. And so he created Ansar Allah, the followers of God. And they launched, and then they launched those 5 slogans: death to America, death to Israel, victory to Islam, God is great, curse be upon the Jews. And that is the basis of the Houthi movement. And the Houthi movement is made up of some of the poorest people in the entire world. Yemen is a country with like 60 million people in it. 37 million don't have electricity in their houses. A pretty large percentage of adults in Yemen are illiterate. We're talking about people who live in one of the poorest countries in the world. They don't have running water. They don't have electricity. They're impoverished people that nobody in the world cares about. They're people that have been completely forgotten and left behind. And even though their country's got lots of oil, and even though their country's got lots of minerals and all of that, they're deeply poor. And they've been left behind. And government after government has been imposed on them by Saudi Arabia, by the United States, and the people there are poor. And among the poorest of the poor and the people who live up in the mountains, the hillbillies of Yemen, this religious movement started. And this religious movement, the Houthis, Ansar Allah, one of their main beliefs is the Second Amendment. That you must have a gun. That's why if you see a picture of a Houthi rally, one image that you will see is them waving their guns around. They believe that it is your duty to own a gun. They interpret the Quran and the Hadith as saying that it is the duty of every man to have a gun to protect his household. I think the Hadith of the Quran says sword, but they believe the modern version of that is a gun. And that's why at those Houthi rallies, they're waving their guns around, because they believe in the right to bear arms. They believe that it is every man's duty, these people who live up in the mountains of Yemen, it is every man's duty to have a gun to protect his household. And they're a particular type of Muslim, right? They are Zaydi Shia, right? So there's different types of Shia Muslims. Sunni Muslims don't recognize any successors to the Prophet Muhammad. However, the Shia Muslims, they recognize successors. Most Shia Muslims are what they call 12er Shias, meaning that they recognize 12 successors to the Prophet Muhammad. However, the Houthis are not 12ers like they are in Iran. The Houthis are a different type of Shia, and that they recognize only up to Imam Zayd. They recognize Imam Zayd as the last imam, the last representative of God on earth. And it's very interesting to learn about who is the Imam Zayd, the founder, the figure that they look up to as Zaydi Shia Muslims. They think was the last prophet or the last representative of God on earth. Well, this is what he looked like, supposedly. This is an image of him. There was no cameras back when Imam Zayd lived. And that's what he supposedly looked like. And Imam Zayd lived in the aftermath of the life of the Prophet Muhammad, when the Islamic Caliphate was becoming corrupt. It was controlled by merchants. And so Imam Zayd led an armed uprising of the poor people in what is now considered Iraq. And Imam Zayd led an army of poor peasants to rise up against the Islamic Caliphate. And he led an uprising, and he was shot through the head with an arrow and killed. And his body was crucified. Right? They first buried him, his followers buried him, but then the corrupt leaders were so angry, they wanted to make an example out of him. They dug his body up from the grave and they crucified it to make a statement. And that is who they look up to. That is their martyr, Imam Zayd, a man who was from, he was descended from the Prophet Muhammad. He didn't have to do that. He could have lived a life of luxury and comfort, but he saw that the Islamic Caliphate was being corrupt and the poor were being betrayed. And so he organized the poor people into an army, and they rose up against the corrupt caliphate, and he was martyred. And Shia Islam teaches that one must give their life for the oppressed. One must stand with the oppressed. Right? It is a religion that very much emphasizes martyrdom. The idea that if you die for the faith, you die for God, that is the highest thing that you can be. Right? When I went to Columbia University, I was a guest speaker a few years ago at an event put on by Shia Muslims. And they had a Shia scholar from Pakistan. And he talked about how his grandfather was martyred. His grandfather was murdered. After his grandfather was murdered, they celebrated, because every day his grandfather had prayed, "Dear God, let me be a martyr. Let me be a martyr. Let me die for the faith. Let me die for God. And let my children die for the faith. And let my wife die for the faith." Because that is considered the highest honor in Shia Islam. To stand with the oppressed, to give your life for God and for the religion. And so you have these people in the mountains, these people that are very tribal, networks of families that have been working together for thousands of years. And they've got their guns, and they believe that being a martyr is the highest purpose. And their founder, Hussein al-Houthi, who became a martyr, right? Hussein al-Houthi told them that a day would come when nobody would stand with the Palestinians, and they would have to do it by themselves. Before he died, he told them, he predicted that there would come a day when the people of Yemen would have to stand with the Palestinians, when no one else would. I got to tell you right now, the Yemeni people are overjoyed that this war is coming. There has never been a group of people being bombed who've ever been so happy about it, because they believe that this is their duty. They believe, and the other thing is that the entire Muslim world is cheering for them right now. When Barack Obama was president, the Sunni Muslims hated the Shia Muslims. Saudi Arabia hated Iran. But now with Israel unleashing its torrent against the Palestinians and the whole world calling out Israel, the Houthis, who are fighting Israel, who struck Tel Aviv with their missile, who've been blocking ships, they are the heroes of the entire Muslim world. And they are rallying their people, and they are saying, this is prophecy. Bring it on, Israel. We are ready. We are ready to go. And I got to tell you, if ground troops end up in Yemen, if Israeli soldiers end up going to Yemen, that's going to be a mess. Because these people have been living in those mountains and those hills for thousands of years. And they've all got guns in their household. And every last corner of the mountains, they'll be on their roofs with sniper rifles, and they'll be setting booby traps and explosives. And if Israel goes into Yemen, a lot of Israeli soldiers are going to go into Yemen and never come back. I got to tell you that. And this is a David and Goliath story, if there has ever been one. This is the poorest people in the world who are so full of religious faith and so full of commitment and understanding that they are right and Israel is wrong. That what Israel is doing to the Palestinians, that's been condemned by the UN, it's been condemned by the whole world, but no one stops them. That they will be the people to stop Israel. That is what they have decided they will be. They will be the ones to stop Israel. And they are going to be known as the country that stood up to Israel like nobody else would. They are committed to this. They have decided that this is who they want to be. There's never been a group of people so excited to have their country bombed, so excited to get into a fight, into a war before. All right, this is a crazy story. This is an absolutely crazy story. And what we are seeing here is it is a lesson for the world on so many levels. Because we're told all this stuff. Don't join a political movement. Don't be part of a mass movement. Think for yourself. Be independent. Now, these people have joined a mass movement. These people have given their lives to a movement. There is no right and wrong. There is no truth. These people, they believe in right and wrong. They believe in truth. They know what side they're on. And the whole world is in awe. How is this happening? How is it that a missile from Yemen hit Tel Aviv? How is it that these people with tiny little boats and tiny little helicopters are stopping ships from all over the world? How is this happening? Well, it's happening because these people are full of passion and devotion, and they believe in what they are doing, and they believe in right and wrong, and they believe in truth and justice, and they are committed to what they're fighting for. And the imperialists are not. And while the Western world is collapsing into cynicism, collapsing into confusion, these people are not. They know what they're fighting for. They know what they believe. Yes, the sheer human will of an underdog. Right? I risked my life trying to get to Yemen and bring them medical aid. I wrote this book, Who Are the Houthis and What Are They Fighting For?, in which I tried to explain who the Houthis were in language the American people could understand, because I think there's something deeply American about the Houthis. I think that there is something deeply American about the Houthis. And I'll tell you why. I've said it on these streams before, but I will say it again. Must be said. You go to Kansas. If you go to the conservative state of Kansas, the farming state of Kansas, in the Kansas State Capitol building, you will find this painting of a guy with a huge beard holding a Bible, his holy book, and holding his rifle. And that man is John Brown, the abolitionist who gave his life in the struggle to defeat slavery. He was a small farmer who lived in the middle of nowhere, and he was very, very religious. People asked John Brown, they said, "Why are you so devoted to opposing slavery?" And he would always cite the Golden Rule. And he would say, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." And if I was held in slavery, I would want someone to fight for my freedom. And so I will fight for the freedom of the black people, because thou shalt do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That is the slogan. I mean, that's why John Brown gave his life to defeat slavery. He was the first American ever executed for treason because he led an armed uprising against slavery. He fought in Kansas against slavery, and then he went to Virginia and tried to seize the armory at Harper's Ferry. This guy was a martyr. And I think John Brown was a Houthi. But there's something very, very Houthi. Very, very Houthi about the American people. Right? This country was started by people who came here because they wanted to practice their religious faith. This country was started by people who believed in freedom and refused to back down on certain principles. And I think that if there's ever going to be socialism in America, if we're ever going to have a society where profit doesn't come before people, it's going to look an awful lot like John Brown. It's going to be this kind of socialism. And think about that. And think about the Houthis. Think about the Houthis. Because I bet they have a different religious tradition, perhaps. But I bet if you asked the Houthis, and if you asked the people in Yemen why they are making such sacrifices for the Palestinians, they would probably tell you something like what John Brown said about the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if I was living under occupation, I was being bombed, I was being prevented from getting medical care, I was being subject to apartheid, I was being destroyed, I would want people in some other country to fight for my freedom. And it's a very, very similar thing. It's a very, very, very similar thing. It's a very, very, very similar thing. So think about that. While we're talking about Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, Israel and Yemen are at war. And the Yemeni people are waving their guns in the air and they're saying, bring it on. Bring it on. We've been preparing for this war for decades. This is prophecy. This is the highest honor in our religion. We're poor people that the world has forgotten about. We're poor people who the world doesn't care about. Now we're ready to fight. That's what they're saying. And that's why I risked my life on a ship in 2015 trying to bring them medical aid. And that's why I wrote this book, Who Are the Houthis and What Are They Fighting For? Because this is very much a 21st century David and Goliath story. And yeah, I'm honored to be able to tell that story to you. And I wish more people knew about it. That's why I wrote this book, and that's why I do what I do, is that there is there is a big struggle in this world. The people of the world are fighting against imperialism, capitalism in its monopolistic stage. And capitalism in its monopolistic stage, imperialism, is holding back development. It's impoverishing people all over the world. And there's a new economy rising in the world. And America would be a much more prosperous country and a much happier country if we could join that new economy. But instead, the international bankers, the big monopolies that run this country, are committed to destroying and bombing and doing everything they can to keep the world in poverty and keep the world under their dominion. And that includes this country. They're trying to turn this country into a low-wage police state. And the American people aren't going to have it. They don't want World War III. They don't want the low-wage police state. They want jobs and schools and healthcare and education. They want decent roads in their neighborhoods. That's what they want. That's what they want. And there's going to come a time where more and more Americans are going to have to awaken and demand it. And they're going to have to realize that people like the Houthis are not our enemies. And the Russians are not our enemies. And the Cubans are not our enemies. And the Chinese are not our enemies. And the Venezuelans and the Iranians are not our enemies. Our enemies are on Wall Street. Our enemies are the big bankers who are determined to keep hold of this world and prevent it from breaking free, prevent it from developing. That is who our enemies are. And then the real America, the America of the workers and the farmers, the small business owners, people in your neighborhood, the real America is going to have to fight against imperialism. And my duty, my job as somebody here in the center of the empire, is to make Americans aware of that and to get them to understand that we are going to have to save our country from what the international bankers are doing, and that we are the real patriots. Because loving America doesn't mean you cut food to children in the Bronx so that you can buy new drones and tanks and bombs for Israel. Loving America doesn't mean that, you let neighborhoods throughout this country rot and you let the roads fall apart while you stockpile bombs and weapons to pile onto the island of Taiwan or to, send to Ukraine. And that our leaders are not patriots. They're not loyal to this country. They're loyal to an international financial system. And that international financial system is dying, and they are becoming desperately vicious in the hopes of preserving that international financial system. And I'm here to tell you that as a patriotic American, as a Christian, we have no interest in helping save their system. There's nothing in it for us. We don't want their high-tech dark ages. We don't want their low-wage police state, and we certainly don't want a world war to preserve it. We want jobs, schools, and education for all. We want a society where the needs of the people come first and human creativity can be unleashed. That's what we want. We want a society where growth is being promoted and the state is mobilizing to build and construct. And yeah, I think about what's going on in Yemen right now. I think about what's happening here in this country and how people are struggling and how people are suffering. Capitalism in its monopolistic stage, the rule of the world by big banks and corporations, imperialism is the greatest threat to all humanity. And opposing imperialism is what it's all about. Opposing imperialism is what it's all about. And I am an anti-imperialist. I want development. I want peace. I want jobs for all, healthcare for all, education for all. I want us to march closer toward the vision of a world of vast abundance, of a world where everyone has enough. I'm not here to tell you that communism as a movement in the 20th century got it right. They got a lot of things right. They turned Russia and China into superpowers. They defeated the Nazis. They invented space travel. But there were obviously problems. And the Soviet Union is never coming back. And Soviet-style Marxism-Leninism isn't coming back. And the communist governments of the world, Vietnam, Cuba, China, they've changed. They have market sectors. You need a market sector for the things that make life fun, enjoyable. The government shouldn't run children's toys. The government shouldn't be running small businesses. And a lot of the anti-imperialists are religious. In Nicaragua, the slogan of the government is Christianity, socialism, and solidarity. The leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, is Roman Catholic. He's a Christian. The leader of the Communist Party of Russia, the Russian Federation, Gennady Zyuganov, is a Christian. The Iranians, they say their system is not capitalism, but Islam. It's a state-run economy, 5-year economic plans, but they are not Marxists. They are not atheists. They believe in Shia Islam. The Ba'athist Arab socialist governments, they were secular governments, but they saw Islam as the tradition of the Arab people. And that socialism around the world, anti-imperialism around the world has changed. The Soviet way of doing things is not coming back. But imperialism is still the enemy of all humanity. The goal is to raise people up from poverty and unleash human creativity and abundance. That is still the goal. So on that note, folks, names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who's with us? Names and locations. Who's with us? Bob in Troy, New York. Welcome, Bob. Mark Jones in Utica. How are you guys always the first ones? That's weird. Patrick Clearly in Los Angeles. Jim in Florida. Jenny in Cincinnati. Dun, dun, dun. London, United Kingdom. Master Jack in South Africa. It's a strange, strange world we live in. Mr. Chopin from Kansas. Denver, Colorado. Balu, New York. I've never heard of Balu, New York. Robert from Detroit. Briggy from Pennsylvania. Brooklyn in the house. Phil High, South in Florida. Sam in Youngstown. Scott in Maryland. Alex in Brazil. April and Chris in Salt Lake City. Molly McGuire out in Orange County. Carolyn and Dario from Brooklyn. Big John on the East Coast. Jan in Louisville. John McCarthy in Chicago. Jamie Turner in Boise, Idaho. Greg in Cleveland. Balthazar in Oakland. Welcome. Steve and Ann in Ringgold, Georgia. I love how many couples watch us together. That's so sweet, right? Is that what you do? You get some popcorn and you turn me on your smart TV and you sit there and watch me together. I like that. I like the idea of married couples watching this together. I think that's very sweet. It's very wholesome, right? Alien Symbiosis in Miami, Florida. Balu is my name. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was the name of your area. Cleveland. Houston, Texas. Chase. Cute. Anthony in Detroit. Very, very good. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. Romantic communism. Chad in Spokane, Washington. Sunak in Guyana. No problem, Bob. Tijuana, Mexico. Very, very good. This is better than a movie. Damn right it is. Movies don't talk back to you when you say things like that. The movie just keeps playing as if you're not there, but I reply now, don't I? Hey, Jim. Cardiff, United Kingdom. All righty. Oh, boy. All right. So, I've only got 2 super chats, and one is John asking me about the audiobook, which I'll post again. We do have an audiobook of the Kamala Harris book. Here's chapter 1 of the audiobook of the Kamala Harris book. And the other one is something that I've talked about too much already and I'm not going to touch. Right. But if anyone has any real super chat questions to ask me, I would sure love to answer them. I am surprised about my Kamala Harris book being removed today. I'm surprised, but we'll see if it slips through with a new cover. We'll see. We'll see if it gets through with a new cover. I don't know what's going to happen. When things like this happen, you start to wonder, does this mean I'm on the list? Does this mean that they're going to come at me with more stuff? But you never really know. So you never really know. But I think the timing of this is ridiculous. And I think it's pretty obvious why they took it off. It's been on there. If it was a new book, fine. If the book came out earlier this year, fine. No, this is a 4-year-old book. And suddenly it was getting traction today. And then, boop. Yeah. I'm on the list. I've been on the list for a long time. Let me just talk about that for a moment. All right. You got to be careful with that. And I'm actually urging people. I hope there's people here who listen to me. Right. You don't want to go over the edge, because I have met a number of people who go over the edge, and you don't want to go over the edge. Look, my face is on RT every day. I was just on there today talking about the Secret Service hearings, and my face is on there every day. I'm writing books. I'm organizing a group. I'm on YouTube every night, but I'm on RT, international television, every day. I am obviously a target. Does stuff happen to me? Yes. Are there, have I gotten knocks on my door from government agencies before? Yes. Have I been arrested before? Yes. I was arrested in the Occupy Wall Street protests. We got Dan, Dan in the Los Angeles area. He does great morning messages, by the way. Dan is great. Yeah. But anyway, am I a target? Sure. But I don't live my life thinking about that. And unfortunately, there are certain people who I don't know exactly. You never really know what happens, right? People experience harassment, people experience cyberbullying, whatever. But there's some people that I've met who they just go over the edge. And there are all these lists that people send me of things that are very clearly designed to put you over the edge. Someone once 2 or 3 years ago sent me a document, and it was like, signs the government is watching you. People sneeze next to you in public places. It's just like all kinds of benign things that you're supposed to think is the government watching you and trying to make you crazy or something. And it's just like, I'm just telling you that if you get too far into that rabbit hole, you're going to lose your mind, right? At the end of the day, right, we live in a very surveillance-oriented society. I don't think anyone should be engaging in any illegal activities at this time. I believe in a purely legal political movement that engages in, legal political activism, legal, educational work, legal charity work. And you just got to be yourself, And you know, and I urge people to not go crazy with because there's a lot. I mean, I forget, there's a whole community on the internet of people call themselves TIs, which stands for targeted individuals. And, you know, there's a whole, what do you call it? There's just a whole, there's a whole strata of people that they get maybe some legit harassment or something, and then they go off the deep end and they think people are following them around on the street and all that. You don't want to be that. You don't want to be that. Right. And at the end of the day, right, I mean, I'm a very public figure and I've gotten my fair share of harassment, but I don't, you know, I take it in stride. So yeah, so we do have a couple more super chats. I answered John's super chat about the audiobook. There was the one I don't want to do, and then there was, why don't you have children? Well, that's a really personal question, Kieran. Why don't you have children? Or do you? I don't know. Maybe you do have children. But no, I just don't want to have children. I could have children if I want to have children. I don't. I don't want to. Neither does my wife. It's one thing that brought us together. Neither of us wanted to have children. Is that okay with you? Would you prefer that I do? I mean, I don't understand why you feel that is an important thing to ask me about. It is kind of like oddly personal, but hey, what the heck? Next question. What is your opinion on Bitcoin? What role can it play in subverting imperialism? That's an interesting question. I mean, cryptocurrency is interesting because in theory, cryptocurrency is less traceable. You know, this whole thing about going cashless, right? That's a big thing they're pushing. And I've noticed now you just tap your card any place, right? It used to be that to use your credit card at various places that there was like a $15 minimum and all that. Not anymore. Now every store I go to, just tap your card. And I'm seeing more and more places where you can't use cash. You must use a card. I'm not sure I like that because that means that somewhere every transaction is recorded, right? If you use cash, there's no record of it, right? In theory, Bitcoin gives you that kind of privacy as well, but does it, right? I feel like your phone, you know, people can record what goes on in your phone, right? People can record where you go on the computer. In theory, Bitcoin can be very anonymous. In theory, it can be, but is it? I honestly don't know enough about it, to tell you the truth. I really don't know enough about crypto to know. Is crypto like a way that people can be, I feel like you can still track it, right? And in theory, you can track cash too, except you can't really prove who had what bill. The bills all have serial numbers or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, it's a way people spend money now, right? So there we go. I do want to interview Tyler about this. Tyler is a member of our CPI community who is really into this stuff. And he actually, he has done a lot of research and he has some very strong opinions and he knows all about it. I don't. So I would actually like to interview him about it. And I've been meaning to have him on this show to talk about it. And when he's ready, I'll have him on and he will say a lot of things about it. I love Tyler. He's a great member of our community and he has very strong views on this topic. All right. Next question. Opinion on the Las Vegas mass shooting a few years ago. Well, I got to tell you, I was horrified to see that, there were people saying that because they were in line for a country music concert, they all were racist and they deserved to die. I was horrified. I saw members of the Workers' World Party that I was in the group. I was in Workers' World Party for years. I had just left and I was horrified. The ethnic hatred for low-income white people, for rural people, for Southern people, among these woke people, it is ethnic. It is not about, it's not about politics. It is purely an ethnic thing. And the fact that, seriously. But the fact that there was a layer of people who were like, cheering, I mean, that was horrible, right? It was like, oh, these are all racist Trump supporters, blah, 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 blah. Well, first of all, it was black people who invented country music. Did you know that? Actually, it is true. Black people invented country music. Country music was started by black people. You can Google that. It's now a white people thing, but it was started by black people. You know, and there would be no modern country music without African Americans and African slaves. They invented it. So there's that. But the other thing is, it's just like, I mean, that whole thing, honestly, it was another one of those weird cases where the motive isn't clear. What was also interesting about that one was the shooter was the wrong age. Generally, when it's a mass shooting like that, where they're just killing people, right? They're just killing people, right? There's no person being targeted. It's a mass shooting. It's generally a guy in his teens or 20s. Very rarely is it somebody older than that. This guy was really old. He was an old dude. And that was odd. Like, why did this old dude, and he got a hotel room, and he was in his hotel room shooting at people. Something was off, right? One thing I do remember is that it was that writer, the guy who wrote The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, Greg Palast, went to the same high school as the shooter, and he wrote an essay about it, on how they both studied woodworking together, and like the career program, the vocational program together. And he didn't know the guy very well, but they were both in vocational training at the same high school. And the guy was just a kind of a quiet guy who was a lifelong gun collector, and no one knows, and it wasn't like he was stockpiling guns to do the shooting. He'd already been stockpiling guns his whole life. And in fact, he had a gun shed in his backyard, apparently. And he was just and there's a lot of guys like that around the country. It was a lot of guys like that, and they, have guns, they collect guns, they have a gun shed in their backyard, or a gun, and no one saw it coming, and he did it. And it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, that doesn't fit. He's not a young guy. He doesn't have a manifesto. Something's off, right? And generally people do that. They want to be remembered. Nope, doesn't want to be remembered. They're usually young, and they're in like the prime of their life. They're the angry young man, not an angry young man. It was an old dude. That doesn't make sense. Now, this shooter who took a shot at Trump, now he was a young man, but then that's not for assassins. Assassins, that he was trying to kill Trump. He wasn't trying to kill just anybody. He was trying to kill Trump. So that, he was young, but that doesn't really apply to assassins. But also, presidential assassins generally write big manifestos about why they're doing it. They tend to be highly political, or there's like something weird where they have a crush on a celebrity or something, or that doesn't make sense, right? This guy doesn't look like the profile of an assassin, and he doesn't the whole thing doesn't make any sense. But I got to say, and I will say, I said this earlier, all over Twitter, there was a video going around of a face of a guy that they claimed was the guy who did it. And it wasn't him. I'm not even going to say that guy's name because I don't want to, help make things worse for that guy. But I'm utterly furious about it. This one guy, it was all over Twitter. I assumed it was true. They said, oh yeah, the sheriff's department has confirmed it. No, they had not. There was a guy, a Latin American man, not going to say his name. It was all over Twitter that he was the guy who took a shot at Trump, and he was not. He was nowhere near the scene. He had nothing to do with it. That is, poor freaking dude. And that shows you how evil social media can be. That is unbelievable. That guy should get $1 million, and a Twitter executive should get fired. They should have immediately flagged that post as disinformation. Can you imagine if the president, someone shoots at the president, and then they put out there, oh, you're the guy who did it and you didn't have anything to do with it, but it's thousands and thousands of people are retweeting that you're the guy who did it. Can you believe how awful that is? That's horrible. That's just completely out of line. But anyway, that's not on topic. Anyway, Beijing, Manila agree to managing Rene Reef's situation. Epic imperialist fail. Well, that's really good on the Philippines' part. And the Philippines would be very, very, very stupid to make their country into the new Ukraine, right? And they had a President Duterte who made a deal with China, and now they have a president in there who's not so good. And I'm glad to see that this has been resolved. I'm really, really glad, because the Philippines, it was a U.S. territory and it suffered horrendously. Read about the U.S.-Philippine War, not the Spanish-American War, but the U.S.-Philippine War. I mean, so many American GIs were sent to the Philippines in the early 1900s, and so many Filipinos, hundreds of thousands of Filipinos were killed, so the United States could keep it as a naval base in the Pacific. And it was a horrendous colonial occupation, and it wasn't until after World War II they got their nominal independence. And then there was the dictatorship of Marcos for many years. The USA backed a brutal military dictator named Ferdinand Marcos. And the Philippines has been through a lot. They've been through a lot, and the last thing they need is to be the site of a new proxy war with China. So I'm glad they made a deal. All righty. You need 300 delegates to sign to put your name in the nomination. But the DNC is refusing to give Marianne Williamson access to the delegate list. Of course they are. It has never been so blatantly rigged as it is today. I mean, we are seeing a blatantly rigged election. The Democratic primary voters, there were no debates. They basically declared Biden would be the candidate. Then they had an election to vote for it. And so everyone voted for the guy that they thought was the guaranteed nomination. And then he stepped out. And now those people just get to decide, it's Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris did not get a single vote in the Democratic primary, and she is going to be the nominee. When she ran in the Democratic primary in 2020, she was wildly unpopular. She got no votes whatsoever. And now she has a very good chance of being president. I mean, I think she'll lose. I think Trump will win, but this is not democracy. And Marianne Williamson was another candidate, and they wouldn't let her debate. They didn't even treat her like a real candidate. Various states, I don't even think, let her on the ballot. If we're watching a situation where the Democratic Party is so corrupt and so rigged, this is a joke. And they almost did Biden again. Why not? Right? It's not like the American people get to decide or anything. It is so corrupt. So corrupt. And yeah, Marianne Williamson, I don't agree with everything she said, but lately she's been on point. She's been on fire. Just pointing out, and RFK too, like, this is a joke. The upcoming Democrat National Convention, it's happening August 19th in Chicago, is a joke. It's a complete joke. There is not a shred of democracy to it. Not a shred. The candidate we all voted for dropped out. The person that's been selected for us is somebody nobody voted for. Barely anyone voted for her in 2020, and nobody voted for her this time. And yeah, and then other people, nope, not going to happen. No debates. RFK became an independent candidate because what was the point of running in the Democrat primary? This is pretty unreal. Pretty unreal. All right. Can one be anti-Zionist, imperialist war without being at least extremely critical of capitalism? I ask that because I say a lot of people are anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist war, but worship capitalism. Sacker, at this point, what does capitalism even mean? None of these words have meaning anymore. I have spent my life on learning what these words really mean and the movements and all that, but what's capitalism? A lot of people just think capitalism means having money. All right, and I love capitalism. That way I can have money. Well, a lot of people that are anti-war and anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist want to have money, and they've been told capitalism means having money. They're like, I don't want to not have money. So, socialism. What does socialism mean? Well, we're told that socialism is the redistribution of wealth, right? It's taxes. Well, does anyone like to pay their taxes? I sure don't. I don't know anyone who's like, oh boy, charge me some taxes, Well, if socialism just means taxes, wouldn't you be against it? None of these words have any meaning, right? And when it comes to capitalism, I mean, if you mean small business owners, that's a big part of 21st century socialist economies, right? The understanding of capitalism that my tradition had, the Marxist-Leninist tradition had, is that capitalism is a society where profit is in command, where the major centers of economic power and means of production function in order to maximize profit for their owners. And socialism is the abolition of capitalism, when you have a society where the banks and the factories and the industries and the centers of economic power are operated in public interest. You have a planned economy. And in the 21st century, those planned economies have involved a lot of private small business owners, high-tech innovators. China has a very big private sector, but that private sector is coordinated with the overall state central plan. But to a lot of these folks, right, I mean, they just think communist means woke. They think communism means global capitalism. They think the World Economic Forum are communists. They think communism means globalism. Communism means government control. Communism means and then they think capitalism just means having your own business or having your own personal property. So, I mean, none of these words mean anything. I think that's what you need to take from this, Sacker. And that's why as CPI, we're moving away from the communist label. I mean, there's no question that Marxism, Leninism is a big influence on us, and probably the primary influence, but we took the good from that, and the woke people took the bad. And if we go around calling ourselves communists, people all think we're woke, and we're not. We're not part of the woke movement. We're not politically correct. We don't want to tear other people down. We don't believe in destruction. We don't believe in degrowth. Capitalism, communism, and socialism in the American mind have become identified with something that we don't agree with, we don't believe in. And the kind of people that walk around now embracing those terms are totally opposed to what we believe in. So, we're looking at what actual socialist and communist governments like Vietnam and Cuba and Venezuela and China do. And these people are looking at, they want vengeance and bloodlust, and they want to unleash their rage and sexual desires, and they are pessimistic and they hate the human race, and that's just not where we're at. So, these words, Sacker, you can't argue. You can't argue if you don't understand what you're arguing about. You need to understand what it is you're arguing about. And we're not powerful enough to just change what everyone's vocabulary list is. Right? We're not, right? And that vocabulary arguments are not very productive usually. They can be productive if there's people who really want to listen to you and really want to learn, but for the most part, an argument about vocabulary is not helpful. Right? You want to argue about policy. You want to argue about concepts, not about what words you should use or what the words mean, but rather what should actually change. Right? There's no question that I've been a communist my whole life, and that I'm still a communist, but not in the way that I used to be, and not in the way that a lot of these people are communists, right? I believe in God. A lot of people believe communist is you don't believe in God. Well, I believe in God. So according to a lot of people, I'm not a communist. Well, I think I am, because not believing in God was never a big part of being a communist for me. And when I visit communist countries, that's not a big part of what they're about. But for some reason, in a lot of people's minds, communist means not believing in God. So if that is what communist means to you, I'm not one. If communist means wanting to go back to the Soviet way of doing things, none of the communist governments in the world are doing that. I don't think that. If communist means chaos, death, and destruction, and we hate America, it's an evil, racist, white country, burn it down, tear it down, I don't think that. So it's like, what do these words even mean? And I increasingly find that arguments about vocabulary are not productive, right? Just like arguing with someone about what they said, right? I've learned that. Like, if you're having a disagreement with somebody, don't start in about you said. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they said. It matters what they believe, what they feel. So, and if you say you said, and then they come back with, no, I didn't say that. Well, has anyone learned anything? Okay, so you heard this, and they say, well, they didn't say that. Okay, has anyone gotten better? There's obviously a point of disagreement between the two of you. But if you just have an argument about what somebody said, it's not productive. The issue is find out where you disagree, resolve that disagreement. And that goes for These kinds of arguments, right? I mean, look, all these people think socialism is one thing. You think it's something different. Rather than argue about what socialism actually means, let's argue about what we could actually do to make the country better. How about that? You know, why don't we argue about policy, right? And, you know, when people are really listening to you, you can have a conversation about what words actually mean and all of that. But when you are arguing on a mass level with like lots of people where you only have a short amount of time for them to listen to you, you can't focus on what words mean, right? And so I'm at the point where arguing against capitalism. Yes, I don't believe in capitalism. I believe that we should have a society where the needs of the people come first and profits are not in command. That's what opposing capitalism means to me. And I'm not even against regular capitalism. I'm against imperialism. I believe that the main enemy is imperialism, capitalism in its monopoly stage. And then in order to resist imperialism, countries have to move towards socialism, even if their socialism involves a market sector. So it's a complicated, nuanced thing. But I'm at the point, I don't even think it's productive to go around saying I'm against capitalism, because to a lot of people, that just means having money. And I'm not against people having money. People need money to survive. You got to pay your bills somehow. I'm not against people having money. And so to a lot of people, especially on the right wing, capitalism just means having money. Or, Ayn Rand said capitalism just means freedom. I mean, capitalism means all kinds of different things to all kinds of different people. Democracy means all kinds of different things to different people. And, if you want to make progress with people, if you want to get them to think, you don't say, well, that word that you think means something, it actually means something else. You're wrong about what that word means. Don't use your limited time where someone's going to listen to you to argue with them about what a word means. Use your limited time to put forward something that you are for, not something that you're against, something you're for, right? We have our 4-point plan that we're for. I think the overwhelming majority of the American people would agree that our oil and our natural gas and our coal and our timber should be used to make our country wealthier. And it would be better if, instead of having to pay taxes, our government just made money off of our natural resources. Take the burden of taxation off the population. Nationalize our natural wealth. I believe that the oil in the ground and the natural gas in the soil and the minerals and all the wealth, the natural wealth of America, is the property of all of us. Should be held in common. Right? And the proceeds from it should go to build better schools, better hospitals, things that benefit all of us. And that way we don't all have to pay taxes. That's one. Number two, banking. Rather than having the lending of money be done just based on what some private banker can make money on, have a state national bank that strategically assigns credit in the interest of the country to make a wealthier country. Why not? Right? Hire all the young people and rebuild this country. Mobilize an army of American rebirth. Hire the unemployed to rebuild the country. A mass reconstruction program. Pave those roads. Pave the roads. New high-speed rail systems. New power plants. Just give this country a new high-tech makeover. And the final step would be an economic Bill of Rights. The right to jobs, the right to housing, utilize, not as a handout, but because if we want to have a strong country, the people in our country have got to be healthy. They got to be able to see doctors and be healthy. We want to have a strong country, the people need to be educated. They need to have knowledge. We want to have a strong country, we want to utilize the labor power of every able-bodied person, put them to work. So an economic Bill of Rights is not a handout. It's about making the country stronger. It's an investment in the population. An economic Bill of Rights, mobilizing to rebuild the country, public control of natural resources, public control of banking. Those 4 things, I'm for them. I think they would make the country better. Small business owners would benefit. All kinds of communities would benefit. Working people would benefit. That's our 4-point plan at the Center for Political Innovation. You like it? I like it. Well, I think that plan, I cannot stand loud cars. Do you hear that on the thing? Maybe it's not, the mic isn't picking it up. It's somebody in my neighborhood. Good Lord, loud cars. I cannot stand loud cars. It's like they annoy everyone. I'm sitting here trying to have a conversation or a live stream, and somebody just roars by in their loud car. And I'm thinking, am I supposed to be like impressed? Listen to this. It's annoying. It's damn annoying. And it's like, look at me. I can annoy everyone within earshot. Look at me. And it's like, they always think they're so manly. It's like, yeah, I'm a man, right? I made a loud noise with my vehicle. I'm a man. I'm so strong and powerful. No, you're not. You're an asshole and you're annoying everyone. I really don't understand that. Let me just throw this out there. There's certain types of people, usually younger men, but sometimes older men, who have it in their mind that the way to show everyone that they're amazingly tough is to just annoy the crap out of everyone. Right? It's not just the guy like that, right? That guy revving his engine, running up and down, annoying the whole neighborhood. Right? Right? But like on the subway, this is something that will happen. I'll be on the subway. We've all got our headphones in or whatever. Young guy comes in, and on his phone, he's blasting some music that he likes. Right? And it's not just like, it's not just that he forgot his headphones that day, because he blasts up the music on his phone, and he walks in and he's looking at everyone like, yeah, want to fight about it? Tell me to turn it down. Yeah, I'm playing music really loud, and I bet it annoys you, doesn't it? Yeah, let's have a fight about it. And it's just like, okay, good. Okay, dude, you just annoyed everyone on the subway train. And to people's credit, rarely does anyone challenge him, because they know exactly what he's doing, because he's looking at everyone like he's eyeing everyone like he wants to have an argument about it. And everyone can tell exactly what's going on, and they're like, no, not taking the bait. And I always wonder, like, why act that way? Like, what's the motivation there? So you get on the subway because you want to have a fight, right? You want to have a fight, right? That is your goal. I'm getting on the subway today, and everyone else is just trying to get to work or get home from work or whatever, but I am getting on the subway so that I can have a fight with somebody. And usually nobody takes the bait. I will say this is New York City subways are unique. I don't know. I've lived in New York for the past decade or so, and I will never forget, every so often you get somebody who's like on the spectrum and they just don't get New York subway culture, right? Is that there's always crazy people in the subway talking to themselves or whatever. You just ignore them, right? You don't get into a fight with the guy who's got his music blasting, right? But there's always somebody who doesn't get it, and it can be hilarious. One thing that happens on the New York City subway is people go from car to car panhandling, begging. And they walk into the car. Everyone, can I get your attention, please? I, am homeless. I need money. They beg for money. Okay, fine. Whatever. They're allowed to do that. I don't think they should be arrested for doing that. I think, and people will give them money. Other people don't. A lot of people say those people aren't really homeless. They have a place to stay. They're getting disability. This is something they do to like entertain themselves, have extra income. I don't know. I don't care. There have been times where I've given such people money. Most of the time I don't, but whatever. You know what I mean? Fine. Not the end of the world, right? So you're on the subway and they walk into the subway. Hello, I'm homeless. I need money. Okay. All right. And sometimes people take money out. Other times they don't. Pretty standard. I will never forget. I was on the subway one time and there was some young guy who I think must have been on the spectrum. And I think he looked like he might've been wealthier. And he was like a young guy. He's sitting there on the subway. Woman, I think it was a man, walks in. Hello, I need money. And he says, could you please keep your voice down? Could you please keep your voice down? I'm trying to focus here. Oh boy. And it was just like groan. I don't think it led any place bad, but it's just like, shut up, dude. The panhandler is not going to keep his voice down. Just let him get his speech out. People give him a couple dollars. He'll go to the next train. Just don't. I was what? Who does that, right? The panhandler comes up. Yeah, that's the out of towner. That's the out-of-towner. Exactly. He comes in. Can you please keep your voice? And he has like the squargly nerd voice. Can you please keep your voice down? No, he's not going to keep his voice down. Every so often you see something like that on the subway. Another time I was on the subway, right? I was on the subway, and there was a man and a woman. I think they were from Southeast Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, someplace like that. And the man was standing, and the man was standing, and his wife was sitting down, and sitting next to his wife was this guy from New York City. And again, out of towner, doesn't know protocol. The guy from India, whose wife is sitting there, the guy from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, whose wife is sitting there, says to the New York City man sitting next to his wife, "Excuse me, sir, in my country, it is generally expected that a man will sit next to his wife." Oh boy, that New York City guy did not like hearing that. Not the right way to phrase that. Let me just put it that way. "Excuse me, sir." And he says it in this very polite voice. "Excuse me, sir, but in my country, it's generally expected that a man can sit next to his wife. Would you be willing to stand up so I can sit next to my wife?" "You called it." "In your country," the guy shouts out to him. "Well, you ain't in your country. If you don't like, this is America. I got the seat. I can sit here if I want. If you want to sit next to your wife, you go back to your country, mister." And this guy just it was hilarious. It was sad. It was like an overreaction, But yeah, the guy did not like hearing about how in his country it was traditional for a man to sit next to his wife. That guy did not want to hear that. He did not like hearing that, and he let the whole subway train know for the next few blocks, until the next stop practically, about how that guy was not in his country. And in America, if it's your seat, you can sit in it. And how dare he? And, I got some New York City subway stories. Here's another New York City subway story, and then I'll move on. And if anyone has any more super chats, by all means, right, I'll keep answering them. We got one more about the NSA from Funky, but I'll keep answering. I don't know how I got on a New York City subway stories kick, but so one time it was a Saturday morning, and I had gotten up early to go to a political rally, right? And it was it's Saturday morning, and and it was a Saturday morning, and it was winter time. It was pretty cold out. None of us were really happy to be on the subway Saturday morning, and it was a lot of people who had to work on a Saturday. And I was going to a political rally super early. It was 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. The sun is back practically up. It's winter time, and I'm on the subway, and everyone's just kind of miserable, right? Everyone's just kind of miserable. We're just sitting there on the subway, and door opens, man walks in. We can smell the alcohol on his breath. This guy's been drinking all night. He's completely loaded, and he decides to give our car, the whole car, his thoughts on the topic of homosexuality. All these queers and these fags, and he's yelling about gay people. Oh my God, it's disgusting. I can't stand it. He's just walking up and down. He's giving us all his mind about the gays. We're all just sitting there what is wrong with this guy? It's 6 a.m. We're all going to work. This guy's drunk. He's been drinking all night, and he's yelling about how much he hates the gay people. And we're all just sitting there. And it's people are kind of smiling, this guy's out of his mind. And so then, right, in the middle of his rant, he's going on, and he's no one ever used to say anything about gays. Nobody ever used to say anything about gays. ever. No one used to talk about him. No one used to think about him. But now even I'm thinking gay thoughts. Now even I'm thinking gay things. And I got to tell you, the whole car, we couldn't hold it in anymore. And the whole car just started laughing at that point. It was so hilarious, right? I mean, we just started laughing. How could we not laugh at that point? Right? He's just admitting why he's drunk on the morning. The guy's, the guy just admits to us the reason he hates gay people and the reason he's drunk on the morning is because he's having gay thoughts. And we're just sitting there like, wow, no filter. I mean, it was like a cartoon or something, right? And so at the end, finally, after a few minutes of anti-gay ranting, we get to what it's really about, and that he's having gay thoughts and he's got to deal with his gay thoughts. Well, I hope, I don't know. I'm not going to say anything more about it, but, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Don't make your sex life the topic of the entire subway car. Right. I mean, it's annoying enough to have the guy drunk running up and down, yelling about stuff, but then to have it be revealed it's about a personal struggle like that. It was like a comedy routine. It was like a comedy sketch. It was beautiful. It's funny now in New York City subways, they have a sign that says, "Don't be someone's subway story." I thought that was, it's clever. It's clever. If you're going to have a joke in the term of a public service announcement, if you're going to have the joke in the form of a public service announcement, it has to be kind of a wholesome joke. You can't be too outrageous, and it's hard to be funny when you're making a public service announcement. But I like that. Don't be someone's subway story. Keep your voice down. There you go. If all those people had kept their voice down, I wouldn't have something to tell you all about tonight. Now, would I? Anyway, so thank you for that, Saker. All right. Why can't the NSA program be used to find out who's really behind the Trump attempted assassination? Yeah. Right. With all their wiretapping and all their, that's interesting. That's a good question. Funky, isn't that interesting that with all their surveillance and all of that, they know everything there is to know about anybody, but in this case, they just don't know why that guy tried to kill Trump. They just don't know what made Thomas Matthew Crooks do it. Oh boy, what could have possibly made him want? We don't know, right? Can't tap his phone, can't listen to him, can't travel his internet history. Oh no, he's just got privacy. I mean, yeah. I mean, doesn't that tell you how selective it all is? And there were some of those cases. I don't know if you followed the whole wiretapping of Trump Tower and that whole thing. And the more you looked into that whole thing, right? They said no, Trump Tower wasn't wiretapped. Well, it was wiretapped, and it's like, wait, what's going on here? Huh? What? Right? The more you look into it, there's the FISA court that never denies warrants. And then there's they didn't even want to use that court at one point. The Bush administration wanted to go around that court, right? Even though the FISA court has approved 97% of all warrants. I mean, the more you look into this and Edward Snowden and Vault 7 and all of that, yeah, I mean, there you go. I think Trump has got this election in the bag. And that's not necessarily good. I think he's probably better than Kamala Harris, but, there's a lot of bad things about Trump. He was not good on Iran, not good on Israel. But, he went to North Korea and he tried to make peace with Kim Jong-un. That was a good thing. That was good. And he says he wants to end the wars. And I mean, it's complicated. Trump could possibly be pushed in a good direction. John McCarthy has made that point. Trump could possibly be pushed in a good direction because he's under attack. He's, at odds with the majority of his class. And, that's a good thing. So, I mean, that doesn't mean Trump is good. It doesn't mean his motivations are pure. But there you go. So yes, folks, because my Kamala Harris book, they said that the cover is a copyright violation. Wah, wah, wah. Even though it's been fine for the last 4 years, they just, as Kamala Harris is becoming the candidate, they decide that my book got to be removed. And, we'll see if they approve it with the generic cover. But my offer stands. If you would like the book emailed to you, I will actually email them. I'll even email the books. I'll do that right now while I'm still on here. Right, I'll do the first batch. I've got a few people that emailed me already, or that Cash Apped me. But if you want the PDF of the book, you can just Cash App me at CalebMoppin22. Include your email. Right. And I will actually, since I'm waiting for any other questions people might have, and we haven't even hit the 2-hour mark yet. If you want a copy of the book, PDF of the book, Cash App me. And I will now send it to the people who Cash Apped me earlier. So, all right. I'll BCC, so I'm not sending your emails to everybody, and I'll probably do several send outs. I'll probably have people who watch this afterwards. All right, there's one. And yeah, well, I understand people would like to get the book. And I mean, the fact that they have moved against this book is, it is, as I said, the greatest compliment I have had in a long time. So there we go. All right, there's another one. All right, anybody else who wants to Cash App me, by all means, the offer is on the table for the book. So Cash App, CalebMoppin22, $10, and I will send you the PDF. Hold on. Just cutting and pasting the emails here. Okay. Okay, let me just... I'll pull up the PDF. Okay. Okay. All right. I just sent it to a couple people, and if more people would like a copy, that would be great. So, yeah. Yeah, I just sent it to a few people, and so the people who sent it during the broadcast, they got it. I'm sure there will be more people that follow up afterwards. But yeah, let's see how things are going. Anything else on people's minds tonight? Now would be the time to Now would be the time to send me a super chat to keep me talking. I've still got another 20, 30 minutes in me. So yeah, keep me talking. Keep me talking. Yep. Keep me talking. But good times. Good times. Good times. Yeah, you got yours? Good. Yeah, I'm true to my word. True to my word. But one way or another, we will get the book back into distribution. I am confident, even if Amazon finds another excuse not to run it. We will continue to do this, and I am honored, and I will write a new book about Kamala Harris. There's no question about it. I have to do another book now. Now that they pulled this one, I mean, I got much more to say. I've been following her for the last 4 years, and there's a lot more to say. So, yeah. Hey, folks, live and learn. Live and learn. So, live and learn. So, yeah, wild times. Is there a clip I'd like to put on that I haven't shown for a while? Oh, something I already said I'm not going to talk about. Right? I'm not gonna go there. Right? I've on the last few streams, I've given more than enough. Thank you. Given more than enough thoughts on that, and it's just like, what do I have to say about that? Nothing. So I have nothing to say about that. I said some stuff last night, and now I'm done. So there you go. There you go. Maybe I could put some music on. Should I put some music on? Will that be a good thing to do? I will put some music on because there is a song that I've always particularly liked. And I've heard various, it's one of those old Irish tunes that you hear many, many different versions of. Yeah, I'm gonna put it on. So let me find a version of it I can get away with putting it on, but yeah, I like old melodies, right? I like strong melodies. That's just how I've always appreciated music. I like a strong melody. Okay, yeah, I always can get away with playing Raymond Crook. He's from Australia, but he does folk music. He doesn't always do the best versions of songs, but a lot of times he does pretty good, and I can get away with playing him. So I'll put the Raymond Crook version of this is I don't know if you've ever heard it. It's called Rosin the Bow, right? It's an old folk song, Rosin the Bow, and I've always liked it. It's kind of like a guy is old and he's dying, but he's looking back on his life with pride and happiness, and he's saying, "Celebrate me when I'm gone." It's an Irish song called Rosin the Bow. I will put on Rosin the Bow. I like Rosin the Bow. It's a favorite of mine, and they did it for American election campaigns. They would do, Lincoln and Liberty 2, and that for elections they would use this as like election campaign theme songs historically in the United States.
I've traveled all over this world, and now to another I go, and I know that good quarters are waiting to welcome old Rosin the Bow, to welcome old Rosin the Bow, to welcome old Rosin the Bow. And I know that good quarters are waiting to welcome old Rosin the Bow. When I'm dead and laid out on the counter, a voice you will hear from below, saying, send down a hogshead of whiskey to drink with old Rosin the Bow. To drink with old Rosin the Bow, to drink with old Rosin the Bow. Saying, send down a hogshead of whiskey to drink with old Rosin the Bow. Then get a half dozen stout fellows and stack them all up in a row. Let them drink out of half-gallon bottles to the memory of Rosin the Bow. To the memory of Rosin the Bow, to the memory of Rosin the Bow. Let them drink out of half-gallon bottles to the memory of Rosin the Bow. Then get this half dozen stout fellows and let them all stagger and go, and dig a great hole in the meadow, and in it put Rosin the Bow. And in it put Rosin the Bow, and in it put Rosin the Bow. Dig a great hole in the meadow, and in it put Rosin the Bow. Then get ye a couple of bottles, put one at me head and me toe, with a diamond ring scratch upon them, the name of old Rosin the Bow. The name of old Rosin the Bow, the name of old Rosin the Bow, with a diamond ring scratch upon them, the name of old Rosin the Bow.
All right, so that's one version of it. Let's see if this version is any better. That's not the best version of Rosin the Bow that I've ever heard, but let's see if there's another one. Let's see if this guy does it well with a banjo.
This old song I'm going to play goes back a long ways. It's an old Irish drinking song, and as I understand, the first time it was introduced into the United States was in 1804. Then again in 1838, it was introduced again. I believe the melody was used in some of Abe Lincoln's presidential campaigns even. So it does have some American heritage to it. The name of the song is Rosin the Bow. Now that doesn't mean take rosin and rosin up a fiddle bow. Rosin was his name. R-O-S-I-N, and he was a beau, a B-E-A-U, which means a busy bachelor. Now apparently, from the words in the song, Rosin likes to hang around taverns and tip a few and get drunk. And he's also dying. Kind of sounds like a modern day country western tune to me. Some things just don't change. Here's Rosin the Bow. I'm going to play this in 6/8 time. this tune tabbed on my first album.
All right. Well, anyway, so there you go. Yeah, he didn't really sing with it, but that's okay. It was a good tune. So we got a couple more super chats. Perhaps developing a vernacular that adheres to scientific methodology could shed a more accurate light on what we're dealing with in the world. Maybe provide answers even. Hegelian. Yes. Marx. Sure. Well, in theory, you are correct. Right? Developing a vernacular that aligns with scientific reality can help us become more aware of what that scientific reality is and thus shape it more correctly. The problem is we live in a world where those of us who are more in touch with reality don't have the power to define language, right? You and I right now, we could decide that the word pen should actually be Zabubba, and you and I, we could start calling pens Zabubba all day long. And that wouldn't change the fact that to most people in the English speaking world, if you said, hey, can you go give me a Zabubba? They wouldn't know what you're talking about. They know the word pen. You and I don't have the power to define it. Now, maybe if we owned a major TV network, major publishing company, if we controlled the algorithms of YouTube, maybe we could change pen to being Zabubba, but we don't have such a power. So I don't think you're wrong in arguing that we should use language that reflects reality as accurately as we can. That I agree with. However, I don't think we have the power to change language at this time, right? Our ability to change the world is limited, right? There's that whole thing about the Serenity Prayer, to change the things that you can change and to not try to change the things you can't change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And, we have to have an accurate assessment of our own strength. Do we have the ability to completely change the way words are used in the language? No. And that's an argument I've heard from a lot of people. They say, well, we should keep using the word communist because we'll just be so good at organizing, we'll change what it means. And I mean, in theory, I would agree with that, but no, that's just not the way. That's just not where our culture is, right? And there was an argument to be said for that when people's opinions of what communism were purely based on anti-communism. But now there is a group of people out there speaking in the name of communism that are totally against what you and I believe, and totally against what socialist and communist governments actually do. And so under such circumstances, the idea that, well, we just have to outdo them. I mean, maybe in the future when we're in a position to do that, we can discuss doing that. But right now we have to consider what we can actually achieve in this time. If you don't make, this is one thing, right? This is when I get back to that dual delusion that people have. One way that people freeze is they make unrealistic plans. This is an important thing I've realized, right? First of all, if you're not making plans, if you're not visualizing your life getting better, if you're not envisioning how your life could improve, you're not going to do better. You have to be constantly thinking, how can I improve? Where is there an opportunity? How can I advance? How can I achieve something, right? And if you're not thinking that, if you're just, oh, I can't do anything, you're not going to get anywhere. Right? You have to psychologically learn to think, what can I do? You have to think, oh, Kamala Harris is running for president. Oh, I've done some research into, who her father is. Oh, this could be an important part of the conversation. I could write a book about it, right? That's how you have to think, right? You want to get things done. You have to think, what could I realistically do that could change things? And that's the key word, is realistic. Because one of the ways people stay trapped in, oh, I can't do anything, is they make unrealistic plans that they have absolutely no possibility or expectation to ever see implemented, right? And it's a way you trap yourself, and it's that dual delusion. On the one hand, you're the greatest, most important revolutionary ever. On the other hand, oh, there's nothing we can do. How do people stay in that trap? Because they never get into the space of, what can I realistically do to change the world? And that's, if you want to do anything in life, right? I mean, look, it's like, okay, let's say that you want to get up and go to the store. You're tired in the morning, you're waking up, you're tired, you're drinking your morning coffee, and you say, you know what? I want to go to the store. How do you psych yourself up to actually get up and go to the store? Do you imagine running a marathon? Do you imagine yourself running over the line of the marathon and running 26 miles nonstop? Of course not, because if you do that, you're never going to get up from your chair, because that's not realistic. You're not going to run a marathon first thing in the morning after your coffee. You want to envision going to the store, envision what I can actually do. Going to the store, it'll look like this. I'll walk outside, I'll be on my street, I'll walk a couple blocks and go to the store, or I'll get in my car and drive a couple blocks to get to the store. You can do that. Envision what you can actually do. You can do it. But the way people get trapped is they make ridiculously unrealistic plans. And that is how they dream. They don't dream realistically. And there's many versions of this. People dream, what if I lived in another time, in another era? Well, you're not living in another era. You're not. I mean, you're living in the time that you currently live in. You can't change when you were born. You can't change where you were born. You cannot change the past. But I know a lot of people who get caught up in, if I had been born in the 1940s, if you had been born in the 1940s, you would have been a completely different person. You would have had different parents. You would have had a different childhood. You would have had a different life. Everything would be completely different. You don't know what your life would have been like. So don't get caught in that brainworm. It's a pointless brainworm. You're not going to be actually able to go and change whether you were born in the 1940s or not. So stop thinking about it. Right. And I see this a lot. Right. The way people get trapped is they don't have the notion of thinking, okay, I would like to do blank. How can I realistically do it? That is how you got to think about things, because that dual delusion, there's nothing we can do. It's hopeless. What's the point? And here's this ridiculously unrealistic fantasy that I have. Neither of those things help you. Being demoralized and thinking unrealistically, neither of those things help you. If you want to get somewhere in life, you got to think realistically, what can I do? And do it. That's how you get ahead. All right, some super chats are coming in. All right. Should marijuana be legalized? I think yes. No one should ever go to jail for using drugs. Right? I am not an advocate of using drugs, but honestly, marijuana, it's on the same level as alcohol, cigarettes. I mean, it's probably not good for you, but I know some people who it's part of their life and they are able to use it and be fine, happy people. I don't think marijuana is a poisonous heathen devil weed. I've always been of the opinion that that like being intoxicated is not something to be proud of. It's not something to celebrate. But some people do all kinds of things to relax. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a Puritan at heart. Part of me, there's probably things I do in my personal life that I'm not proud of, that I have shame about, that I shouldn't, right? But I don't know. It's just, I guess part of me, there's just this way of doing things. I don't drink alcohol. I used to drink occasionally, but I never really liked it. And, but I just, I don't think no one should ever go to jail for using marijuana. There, I said it. No, it should not be illegal. It should be legalized. Legalize weed. Legalize it. Yeah, I mean, legalize it. Legalize it. Period. All right. There, I said it. Like, that's all there is to it. Legalize marijuana. All right. Any thoughts on Lysenko's theories of hereditary? Well, see, I'm not the person to talk about that with. Right? I'm not a biologist. I will say, I know you all are thinking of certain people on the internet as being responsible for this. Jyoti Brar, Harpal Brar, they were talking about Lysenko being correct and defending Lysenko long before any jerks on the internet were, right? And I will show you the articles. Long before jerks on the internet were talking about it, the CPGBML, they were talking about Lysenkoism. Lysenko, he was a scientist in the Soviet Union, and I honestly don't know the details, but Some of his theories about genetics have been the basis for the allegation that, the communists manipulated science to serve their own ends. And I understand that some of the new research on epigenetics seems to validate Lysenko to some degree or other. Epigenetics, generally, the idea is that that one's what is it? That one's what is it? That one's genes cannot change, right? The acquired traits cannot be passed down. And something I don't know enough, but yeah, here you go. 2010, Lysenko's great contribution to hereditary stuff. I don't know enough about it. I am not a scientist, and this is not the hill I want to die on. But Harpal Brar, Jyoti Brar, my good friends, they have been talking about Lysenko was right and epigenetics and all of that for a long time, right? So go and read what they wrote about it in 2010 in a little car, right? They the basis of a lot of anti-communism is that there was this scientist Lysenko, and his theories were more in line with communism. So therefore, Stalin promoted him, and that proves that communism is bad or something. And the Brar people, they've argued he was correct. And now there is new research about epigenetics that says some of your acquired traits can be passed down, right? Generally, it's like the idea, most biology maintains that like the story that they always give is that if you have mice and you cut their tails off, and then they have baby mice and you cut those baby mice tails off, you're not going to get mice that are born without tails, because they were all born with tails and you cut them off. Those are acquired traits, and acquired traits are not passed down through genes. That was generally the understanding that biologists had. My understanding is that now epigenetics says, well, you might not get mice with no tails, but those acquired traits do impact the DNA, right? And that there's people saying that life experiences, etc., do affect DNA, and that acquired traits can be passed down through genes. I don't understand anything about that. I am not a biologist, and I don't know enough about it. But apparently Lysenko had some theories about acquired traits being passed down in genes or something like that. I don't know. And now with the new research in epigenetics, people are saying that actually that Lysenko guy, who's the basis for all this anti-communism, not exactly. Right? The idea that he was just so wrong and the communist government promoted him because it was ideological, that narrative about Lysenko is unfair, because he may have been right about some things. So, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know enough about it. Okay. Trade unions in communism. What do you think? Well, generally in communist countries, trade unions are a big part of the government. In communist countries, generally every industry and every workplace has some form of worker representation that's required by law. And those unions are mobilized by the government. The government sets them up. That's my understanding. There was debate at the time the USSR was formed about what role the labor unions would play. Trotsky wanted the labor unions to be military institutions. What they called the workers' opposition wanted, Soviets without communists and complete decentralization of the state. That was the Kronstadt uprising. But generally in communist countries, the government sets up labor unions at every workplace. Every worker is in one. And those unions cooperate with the communist government in order to carry out the 5-year plan. And those unions then, advocate on behalf of the workers in the particular workplace. The people who don't like communist governments maintain those unions are just fronts for the government. They don't really represent the workers. But they do to some degree or other. One could say the same thing about the unions here. The unions here are just fronts for the Democratic Party. They don't really represent the workers. I mean, unions exist in a compromised situation, but generally those unions, to some degree or other, advocate for the interests of those workers, but they do so in a way that coordinates with the overall state central plan and the goals of the Communist Party, etc. So that's generally the role that trade unions play. But, I want to be fair. Your question, trade unions in communism, right? Communism is the higher stage. It's the ultimate goal. It's a world with vast abundance in which there's no coercion of any kind. No one has to work. From each according to their own ability to each according to their needs. So much wealth and abundance existing that the need for any coercion or oppression, the need to work itself goes away. People work to entertain themselves. Labor becomes life's prime want, no longer a necessity. So in the higher stage of communism, there wouldn't be any labor unions because there wouldn't be any work that wasn't voluntary. There wouldn't be any wages or anything like that. In socialist countries, labor unions certainly exist and are part of the government. I think that's what you mean is in socialism, right? And there was debate about it. And if you read the history of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, right? In that text, they have a whole thing about the trade unions debate. In the Soviet Union, there was a whole debate about what role the trade unions would play. It was a big thing that the communist governments, the Bolsheviks argued with each other about what role they should play. So there you go. I think the quote that gets thrown out from Lenin said something like, trade unions should be schools of communism. I think that was a quote that was used. So there you go. All right. Well, I hope that answers your questions, folks. All right. Well, let's see what happens with the book. I'm curious if they let me do the book with a new cover or not. I'm curious. We shall see. But it's just another adventure. We just got to keep going. Dare to struggle, dare to win. So I'm really glad to have all of you in my life. I can get on here and engage with all of you, and we can have adventures together. I really, really do enjoy it. And I'll be back.
New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.